This is What's Wild in New Hampshire by wildlife biologist Eric Orff. This is mid-February, and look, take a look at the snow out here, how deep the snow is, and it's lifeless, it's desolate, lifeless. That belies what is going on here in New Hampshire midwinter. Lots of things are happening. So, what does wildlife eat in the middle of winter? What are the animals feeding on right now, mid-February, in New Hampshire? Well, it's easy to look at our bird feeders, and at my bird feeders right here, I have chickadees and tufted titmice and nuthatches. There's a lot of red-breasted nuthatches this winter, more than I've ever seen before, and of course white-breasted nuthatches. But you know what? For most of the year, all these birds are eating insects. For all spring, summer, and fall, they're eating insects. In the wintertime, they switch to seeds because that is what is available. So wildlife is very dynamic. They switch foods to find what is most abundant and most easy to find year round. And this time of year, it's seeds and nuts and berries for many of these animals. So what else is happening in the wintertime? Well, I, as a wildlife biologist for our New Hampshire Fishing Game Department for over 3 decades, one of the things that wildlife biologists do at the New Hampshire Fishing Game Department is each winter we survey wintering deer areas or deer yards. So up to the north, it's the spruce fir, the fir thickets where deer move into it. It's the canopy. It's that close-knit evergreen branches that keep the heat from radiating for the deer. So it's not so much for the food that they're after, but they're really after that cover that provides some insulation. Like if you put more insulation in your attic, it doesn't cost so much to heat your house. So it's the insulation value of the evergreens in northern New Hampshire. It's the spruce fir thickets. In central and southern New Hampshire, it would be the hemlock stands, thick hemlock stands primarily. So that's where they go, and they do feed on them. They do eat fir, branches, boughs, and they eat the bark off hemlock and the branches. And of course, they'll move some distance, not a long ways, to find hardwood browse, so the branches of hardwood trees. So in the wintertime, our deer and moose switch to almost eating entirely branches, sticks, because there is no clover available. There is no aquatic vegetation available for the moose. So our moose and deer in the wintertime pretty much eat sticks. Now, some animals actually store food. In the fall, I'm sure if you've ever watched your bird feeder in the fall when the chipmunks are still out, they puff up their cheeks full of black oil seed. So they take those seeds back underground into their burrows and they store them for the wintertime. So they sleep for days on end, and every few days they kind of stir and go to their stash and eat a little bit of that seeds or acorns or whatever they have hidden in their underground burrows. And of course, blue jays stash food, and squirrels. And who else stashes food? Beavers. Yes, if you've ever seen an active beaver lodge, right near the lodge is the brush under the ice that they dug there last fall, and they stored their winter food so it'll be under the ice and available all winter. The branches and the bark from the stash, their cache of food. And just as a fair warning and as experience, if you decide to visit such beaver lodges in the winter, if you walk where the stash of food is, you're liable to take a swim because they're coming and going and the ice is very thin there. Don't walk where the food is or you'll go in from experience. So what else? So other animals store food, but they store food differently. Our bears and our woodchucks, they fed heavily all summer and especially into the fall, and they store their winter cache of food as fat under their body and around their organs. So over the winter time, they metabolize, basically eat the fat that's within their body as they hibernate very slowly over a 5 or 6 month period. So they have stored their food as fat. Well, some animals might move a distance. Our loons go from our inland lakes to the coast where they eat mussels and clams and the occasional fish that they can catch out at sea. So they moved a short distance just to the coast. Turkeys here in New Hampshire, from studies that have been done, have been found to move as much as 80 miles in the wintertime to find food. And the long-time turkey biologist Ted Walsky sung the glories of spring seeps. Now, spring seeps are where on a hillside the groundwater bubbles out onto the surface, and it usually melts the snow around it. So turkeys might move to those spring seeps in the wintertime. So short distance, but they've got wings. They can go 80 miles if they want. So some animals move to get food. Lots of animals feed under the snow. Now, under the snow might mean for deer, if we've had a bumper crop of acorns, they will root through even a foot or more of snow to smell out or feel out the acorns under the snow, and turkeys will scratch down some distance in the snow as well and feed under the snow on acorns or nuts. But other animals like mice and voles, in the springtime, if we've had a lot of snow, drive around, and if you drive by a shrub, whatever the depth of the snow was, the bark is missing from all those shrubs or small trees. The mice and the voles eat bark all winter long under the snow, out of the watchful eye of the hawks and owls and foxes and coyotes that would be wanting to eat them, because they have to find food every day. They don't store any food. So our owls don't store food, and hawks and foxes and coyotes, they have to go find food every day to survive just one more day. Every day they got to find food. So that's what our coyotes and foxes do. And here are animals. And even in Maine, it was found some years back that when there was deep snow and there was a lot of apples under the ground, under an apple tree, fisher have been known to go there and spend days under the snow eating those apples. So lots of things feed under the snow, out of the vision of our eyes. So it might look desolate and devoid of life, but under the snow, lots of life goes on. So what else is happening over the winter time? Well, remember last fall, you were out for a walk or a hike, and the leaves were just raining down. Bright red leaves, or orange and bright red leaves, fall into the stream and float down or cascade over a waterfall in a color of rainbows. And those leaves are there in the water now. So each fall, Mother Nature provides some animals with food in the sense of leaves. So stoneflies and caddisflies and mayflies and tadpoles are devouring last summer's leaves that fell into the streams and ponds this fall. And what's happening over the wintertime as these animals eat the leaves or the algae that has now also decomposed in those leaves? Well, the fish eat those mayflies and stoneflies and other insects that are in our streams and rivers and ponds over the wintertime. And guess what? Next spring, you may catch a red speckled brook trout that is bright red with those fallen leaves that went into the streams and were devoured by the caddisflies. So even the color of our leaves are not wasted by nature. They go right into our brook trout with beautiful red speckles. This is wildlife biologist Eric Orff with What's Wild in New Hampshire.